Hello and welcome back to Radio Free Urbanism, a podcast about urbanism and stuff. I am your host, Alex Williams, and I'm joined here by two very incredibly, stunningly delightful, wonderful people. Ethan Myers. Say hi, Ethan.
Welcome back, you beautiful people.
Wow, that was so generous and kind. And Nick Laporte.
It keeps getting longer every time. Every intro, you got to add just more adjectives, just be more flattering to us. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, you know what? I put in a lot of effort to that. I study my thesaurus nightly just to try and prepare myself to introduce you guys. But I'm excited to talk about some urbanism here today. We'll start with an update from Nick, and maybe you can explain to us why you're not in your usual location for those people watching the podcast on YouTube.
Yeah, preemptively, apologies. I'm recording my phone right now. I am traveling. I am in Haarlem right now in the Netherlands, which is just west of Amsterdam, not too far away. And so that's what I've been doing. But I just got here today. I'm tired. It's one of those, it was like that. We had a podcast a while ago when Nick was on from my brain's not working. The Rural Urbanist. And it's the same thing. I was up early in Montreal. Did stuff all day in the heat. There was a heat wave over there. Oh my God, it was so bloody hot. Got on a plane, didn't sleep a wink, landed in Amsterdam, got on a bike, and have been biking and doing stuff all day long. And now it's like 7 p.m. here. So anyway, I'm alive. Anyway, Montreal. This is what I'm getting to. Montreal is legit. It's legit. It's amazing. I've been saying I've been wanting to go there for a long time, and I finally had the chance to go check it out. I was there for 4 days. I biked around everywhere using Bixi. Bixi's awesome. People use it like crazy. I used it like crazy. The bike lanes, fantastic for the most part. Some of the safer streets. Saint Denis is one that's like amazing. It's like it should be the blueprint we put down on so many corridors in so many cities. Like as soon as I went down, because I've seen it. Like for example, the Urbanity, they've done videos about this. The Rev that goes down Saint Denis, and they basically turned what was a corridor of parking on both sides and then 4 lanes of traffic into protected bike lanes, parking, and then 2 lanes of traffic, and then also interspersing with pedestrian bump outs to make it safer for pedestrians crossing the street. It's incredible. And I'm thinking about all the places that we could implement that in Vancouver. I'm like, Main Street, Kitsilano, Clark, or Commercial. Like there's like so many great corridors that people love to visit that they could just be way better. Because right now they're just traffic sewers. So to see that implemented in North America is fantastic. But on top of that, so many other things. Pedestrian streets. Like I knew they were doing these summer pilots, but I thought it was like, oh, hey, they've got like 4 blocks here. I got there and I went down to Saint Denis. It wasn't very busy, but there was like people hanging out many, many blocks down Saint Denis in this pedestrianized area. Then I went a block over. They've been having a street festival for a week. And I'm talking, it had to have been over 10 blocks, probably more. And then I got to the end of that, and I looked down Mount Royal, and I was like, oh my God, there's another pedestrian street. And I walked down that one, and it took me like half an hour to get to the end of that. And I was just like, in Vancouver, we're fighting over two blocks in the most like popular spot in the city, in Gastown, just to get those in. And to see that happening in Montreal, it's like, what are we doing? Like, what the fuck are we doing? We're wasting our time. We can do this now. It's possible. We don't need that space for cars. We can use that space for people. And even just in the summer, that's okay. But let's start there.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
on top of
Montreal is streets ahead.
Oh, it's what? Like
Yeah.
I'm convinced. Like it's easily the best urbanist city in North America, at least that I've been to.
Yeah.
And I think it's saying a lot. It's really awesome. But the poutine, holy shit. Oh, whew, the smoked meat and the poutine. I went to, what is it called? Bankies or something?
Okay.
I don't know what it's called. But anyway, amazing. The poutine was amazing.
Did you go
But
to Patati Patata?
I saw it. It was on Saint Laurent, I think. I passed by it. I didn't go there.
It was good. That's
Good
a
one?
good one. Yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah,
so
yeah.
many. I had poutine every day. See, like I only have so much poutine I can fit into my stomach every day.
Yeah. It was so good. Yeah.
Yeah, but the food is fantastic. The people were really nice. Got to see some really cool spots that I've been wanting to visit. It's just a happening city, and I know I went in the summer. It's prime time. It's really busy. Everybody's out, but wow, it's something different. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome. And now, like you said, you're in the Netherlands, which is exciting, and I'm glad that you could still join us here. I'm gonna unmute Ethan here and let him speak.
Wait, I was muted that whole time?
Yeah, I told you to mute, remember?
Oh, my bad. We've been on our funny, dealing with some technical issues today, but
Yeah.
exciting stuff. Not a whole
Yeah.
lot going on my end though, just kind of existing.
Nice, nice. Well,
I
we're
did
we're
I did however
glad
get
you're
some
existing.
I did however get to break out the e-bike this week because it dropped below
Nice.
100 degrees and I said, "You know what? I'm going to go enjoy myself and do a fun little ride." And you know what? I did. I enjoyed myself. I enjoyed some of the multi-use paths that exist on this end of Las Vegas because I mean, they just do exist over here and you might as well take advantage of them. So I did.
Nice, nice. And as we know, e-bikes are the best thing. Well, I have a little update. So Nick and I, after the show last week, we talked a little bit about dating and stuff, and how one of the biggest comments that I get is how are you gonna date if you're car free? I've gotten comments on my YouTube videos with things like, oh, there you are, you're riding your bicycle to pick up your girl, and then some guy swoops by with his whip and picks her up, and she's gone. And you know what? I can I can appreciate people thinking that way when we've got such like an ingrained idea about what dating is and stuff. But I want to share a little bit of my dating profile actually with people, and I my dating profile is it's very clear about where I stand on urbanist issues, and so I wanted to share this little thing. So on Hinge, you can fill in these little prompts. Let me share my screen here. Um, There we go. So you can fill in these little prompts here, and so we'll instantly hit it off. If you love trains, you love museums, you love walks, and then there's this quick rant one, and hopefully you can hear this. Parking and the way that parking holds us back from building affordable housing. Take Anderson Station, for example. That parking lot has 1,750 parking stalls. Now, if we built apartments on top of there, everybody would expect that their free parking at the train station would remain. Problem is, when you build a parkade, it costs about $50,000 a parking stall. That means $87 million would be spent on free parking when building affordable housing. So I make this little rant talking about parking and how expensive parking is, and how destructive parking minimums are, and things like that. And all of my friends, they say, "Well, Alex, you're putting, your whole profile is just like about urbanism." And I said, "Well, she's gonna hear about this on the first date, so I should just get it out there, make sure we're on the same page about it." Because I also don't own a car. But I will assure people who are worried about my dating life is going perfectly fine. Thank you very much. I have discovered you don't need a car to go on dates, and to meet lovely people and to get to know them. So yeah, I thought I'd share that as my little update, because I thought that was kind of a funny story.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. You don't need a car. Oh, in
No,
Calgary, it seems a little questionable, but yeah, you can make it
yeah,
work. There are
yeah.
trains. There are bike
There
paths.
there are trains, and also it's something. It makes me interesting. Like how do you get around without a car, Alex?
Well, let me show you the way.
Let me show you
I've
the
got
way. Hop on
legs.
my tandem bike. Yeah, check out my legs.
Yeah,
Yeah, it's true. It's true.
yeah.
But yeah, I thought I'd share that because that's a kind of funny little thing from my personal life cross section with urbanism,
Yeah.
which seem to be more and more intertwined.
He's also
Uh,
fishing. Anybody out there is in the Calgary area looking for an urbanist to date?
hey, I am an urbanist, and I am single. So we will get onto our stories now, though, and I'm gonna kick us off with this story here. This was sent to me by the good folks at the Rio Grande Plan. We've talked about the Rio Grande Plan several times on the show before. Haley and I did a bonus episode where we talked to Christian Lenhart, who is kind of the originator of the Rio Grande Plan, which is basically the idea is to put a train box around the tracks through Salt Lake City and build like a nice urbanist kind of utopia around these trains and kind of encourage quality urbanist development while also removing level crossings with tracks, which if you live in Utah, you're very familiar with how dangerous these level crossings are. It's a very busy rail corridor, but also busy with pedestrians and cars trying to cross from east to west or west to east. But I will. So this is the news here. It's that what is this? The AIA of Utah, which is the Architects Institute something or other. That was very specific. You're welcome. But they've done kind of like a review or an evaluation of this plan, and they were trying to sort out, what this could look like, how it should look, and I'll read this here. The Rio Grande Concept Plan Screening Analysis, managed by Salt Lake City Transportation Division, evaluated, in very general terms rather than in detail, what it would take to underground the heavy rail track utilized by Front Runner and Union Pacific, roughly between 1300 South and 600 North. The study did not make a recommendation, but identified the key issues to provide decision makers preliminary information about the costs and benefits of such an undertaking so that they may decide whether the concept merits further detailed study. So this is actually like real progress on this. And the people at the Rio Grande Plan, they told me that this wasn't done with their encouragement. They didn't, push this to necessarily happen. They weren't involved in the evaluation. This is something that was just done. So it's really exciting to see this like a grassroots, big, multi-billion-dollar plan and idea be taken kind of legitimately and seriously. So what do you guys, what do you think of that? What excites you about this progress? Maybe we'll hear from Ethan first, our transit expert.
I mean, it's really exciting just to hear that this project is being legitimized in some way. I mean, it's not so much the rail logistics of this whole project. It's more or less the redevelopment of the station area, because if you've been to Salt Lake City, you'll know that the main station for Salt Lake, like their main downtown station, because this is where they want to do this, is where the Amtrak trains, the California Zephyr stops. It's very lackluster. It's not what you would think a city that gets frequent, regional rail transit from the Front Runner connections to light rail and buses and intercity rail from Amtrak gets. You would assume that it would be a really nice station in some regards, but it's really nothing more than just a few covered areas for waiting and surrounded by empty train yards for the most part. So the exciting part of the Rio Grande is actually kind of turning this underutilized area that has all this potential into being an area with large amounts of transit-oriented walkable housing and giving a station that deserves respect, as well as safety upgrades that could probably also enhance the capacity of Front Runner Rail.
Yeah, it would be huge, and I've just pulled this up here. They've put a lot of thought into this. They want to rejuvenate the area and really allow it to be something impressive and something that the people in Salt Lake City can appreciate and enjoy. Nick, what are your thoughts on this plan and this progress that we're seeing here?
Again, like Ethan said, the progress is great just for it to be legitimized and for it to be recognized as something serious that could happen and that they're looking at possibly doing. But I think it's one of those things where if it gets done, it becomes a beacon to show people, oh, like this is how good it could be. Like this is how good transit can be. It's like you have to experience it to really know it. And I don't think a lot of people have experienced good transit. So, like,
Yeah.
if something like this can happen, just for other people visiting the city, especially as Utah's trying, or sorry, not Utah, but Salt Lake City's trying to grow, right? I know they've got new sports teams coming in soon, so I think it's going to be a bigger spot on the map. So to make it more livable, better urbanist city is going to be better for everybody.
Yeah, absolutely.
Another big thing, too, is that the city is trying to enhance service on its frontrunner regional rail. And actually, I believe the end goal of it is for it to be electrified and for it to be running frequent service. I believe UTA has actually said that themselves, because the Wasatch Range where this runs is pretty much a linear metro area. It's near close to a straight line, and this is mostly due to geographical restrictions, but the idea of having an actual central area in Salt Lake that has a great station, that has a great neighborhood around it, would be huge for the city as well, too, since it's looking forward to hosting an Olympics in the next decade.
Yeah, like this is a huge project, and now is definitely the time to get that started. I wanted to note as well, AIA Utah is the Utah chapter of American Institute of Architects. And last thing on this, before we get on to our next story, if you are in Utah or you live in Utah part-time, you're a student there, or whatever it is, whatever relationship you have to Utah, write in letters of support to your senator or your state representatives, whoever it is that might be your decision maker in this process. Let them know that this is something you care about. Let them know that this is something you support and that it's something you want to see happen. Those letters of support go a long way. Those give political capital to the politicians to say, like, well, my constituents want it. Like, I don't know what you want me to say. The voters are telling me. This is very important for your support. So write in, make sure it gets your support, and then we can keep going. With that, we'll pass it on to Nick for our next story.
Yeah, this is kind of not a hot take, but just a viral moment that happened recently. This is from the Quebec City mayor, where he sounded off, and I think he's another person who we found is quite based, which is good. It's really good to see. You know, we got Valerie Plante in Montreal, the mayor. Obviously, we know what's going on over there. So to see what happened here. So are you going to play the video here?
Yeah, I'll pull that up for us here.
So essentially, to kick it off.
Obligatoire pour les cyclistes hivernaux. Je sais que ça coûte à peu près 6% du budget total du déneigement pour déneiger les pistes cyclables. La contribution des cyclistes est en fait nulle ou à peu près.
Et la contribution des automobilistes, elle est comment?
Sur les pistes cyclables?
Non, sur le déneigement.
Ben, c'est pas ça ma question, en fait. Là, c'est à savoir, êtes-vous pour ou contre?
Non, juste parce qu'on me dit que c'est inéquitable, parce que les cyclistes ne payent pas le déneigement des pistes cyclables l'hiver. Mm-hmm. Les automobilistes le payent comment, le déneigement?
Ben, par les taxes municipales que vous collectez, M. le maire.
Puis les cyclistes ne les payent pas, les taxes municipales?
Ben, ça, c'est votre argumentaire.
Non, mais c'est intéressant, parce que je me souviens pas, j'ai regardé l'ensemble des règlements de la ville, puis je me souviens pas dans les règlements de la ville d'avoir vu les cyclistes sont exemptés de payer des taxes municipales lorsqu'arrive leur compte municipal. Je me souviens pas d'avoir vu ça, mais ça m'a peut-être que M. Patrick Paquette a vu une ligne que j'ai pas vue. Non, mais je sais pas, parce que je pourrais supposer qu'avec minutie, il a regardé chaque ligne de règlement et dire j'ai vu la faille, les cyclistes à Québec, surtout ceux d'hiver, ne payent pas de taxes municipales. Fait que quand ils reçoivent leur compte, ils vont à la banque et disent regardez, pas besoin de payer de taxes. Je me souviens pas d'avoir vu ça. Donc, mon propos, c'est de dire, et vous comprenez très bien par l'absurde, le cycliste et l'automobiliste payent le déneigement. Le piéton paye le déneigement. Ou par ses taxes municipales.
So apologies
good.
For those who don't speak French, so for those listening, essentially the conversation went, the interviewer asked the mayor, he says, so it seems that clearing the snow for the bike lanes costs about 6% of the total snow removal budget. So why aren't cyclists paying for that? You know, and basically the mayor, this journalist tried to get you, and I got you, saying, how much are cyclists paying for that? Well, he says, wait. How much are cyclists paying for that? How much are motorists paying for that? And the journalist says, well, no, that's not my question. He says, no. He's like, if we're talking about this and we're actually looking at the numbers, we all pay for property tax. and we all contributed to this budget to clear the snow. It's not that cyclists get to go to City Hall and show, hey, oh, no, I'm a cyclist. I don't pay my tax. I don't have to pay tax because I'm a cyclist. We all pay taxes and we all pay for that. So that's basically his point, which was just the way he went about it, which is amazing.
It was so good, and the way he said, "Oh, maybe I missed it. You can correct me if I'm wrong, but like maybe I missed it." The line where it says cyclists don't pay taxes. He's like, pedestrians pay taxes. Everybody pays taxes. He's like, that's part of the deal. He's like, we're not gonna create a special levy on cyclists to clear their paths, but not do the same thing for drivers. It was very well said. And he made it very clear that like, no, this is a city service and people get around by bike.
Yeah. It was also it's really a good thing seeing an actual mayor stand up for cyclists and their infrastructure, and rather than the vice versa, where you do see a lot of mayors around North America, both in the U.S. and Canada, yapping and complaining about cyclists in any sort of way, despite the fact that they are infinitely more efficient than drivers when it comes to moving people through the city and in reducing costs.
Yeah, we've talked about this before in this podcast.
Yeah.
I've talked about it. I've made a video about it. Like, I still get comments about this. We're always going to see comments about this, like, oh, cyclists need to pay their fair share. They need to pay taxes. They need to pay for insurance, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. It's like, well, are we going to start with drivers? And what do you mean? It's like, you're being subsidized by people who don't drive. And I'm going to come back to my own video that I said, the more you use the infrastructure, the bigger the vehicle you choose to do it in, the more likely you're not paying your fair share. It's as simple as that. It's as simple as that.
Yep.
That's it.
Yeah, and I had that conversation with a couple at the where was I? Oh, I was at an intersection, and I was stopped at this light, and at this intersection, it's really, really, really poorly designed for cyclists and pedestrians. It's not made for anybody but cars. And I was chatting with this elderly couple who was riding their e-bikes, and I said, oh well, it's all about cars. Cars are prioritized at every turn. And this gentleman, he said, well, they pay more in taxes. And I said, they don't though. They don't. Like, I pay the same taxes as anybody else. I pay property taxes. I'm not a homeowner, but you think my landlord is just like, nah, don't worry about the property taxes. I won't rope that into your rent at all, right? Like, of course, we're all paying for these things. I pay income tax. I pay, right? Like, we're all paying for these things, and the user fees paid by people who drive vehicles, right? Whether that's through their registration or gas taxes, etc. That's not enough to cover that infrastructure. And so I explained this to that couple. I said, actually, no, we're subsidizing them, and well, that's the bottom line of it, right? I think more people need to be made aware.
Yeah.
A lot of people really just do not understand the cost of driving a car on society. I mean, people really legitimately, when you bring up the cost of operating a car, just only bring up gas. And I know we've kind of talked that over, but yeah, I mean, people really only see the cost of gas. They don't see their insurance's cost. They don't see car payments' cost. A lot of people just ignore car payments in general. Insurance, tags, everything. People just ignore that.
I talked about this before in the podcast, but like, whenever I talk about rent, and I'm always talking to my wife, she'll say, oh, our rent is at X. And I was like, wait. No, our rent is at this. The parking costs that much. Those are two separate things. You keep lumping in the parking with the rent. It's not the same. That's a car expense.
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's a really important consideration as well. But yeah, we love to see the Quebec mayor being so based. Austin in the live chat here, he joins us, which you can too if you are on Patreon, joining us as a patron. You can watch this show live, which we had to do it at a weird time today. But Austin joins us and he says, great stuff. The Quebec City mayor is a true role model, and I couldn't agree more. But with that, let's get on to Ethan's couple of stories here that he's bringing us.
Yeah, that's right. I'm bringing two stories in one today. So the past week has really not been a good one for cyclists, despite the Quebec City Mayor's defense of them. We've had two stories, one that came out, I think, yesterday, and it was a pretty standard thing that happens in America, unfortunately, but this time it was caught on dash cam. We're not going to show the video here because it is quite graphic, but for anybody who's listening, you could probably find it anyways. It is two cyclists in Dallas that were hit by a vehicle trying to get to the airport in Dallas. And this is unfortunately just too common of a thing. It's really the worst case scenario with must get in front of syndrome, where it's not the vehicle passing illegally or anything like that, but it's the vehicle just straight up running through cyclists. And also on top of this, we had news come from probably one of the most famous chefs on the planet, if not the most famous chef, Gordon Ramsay, recently got into a cycling incident. And just on the topic of safety, he brought up the topic of bike helmets. But, I mean, I get that someone might be a little bit shocked from this, but there was no mention of anything that has to do with bike infrastructure or anything along those lines. So it really, a lot of these conversations really, the main point that I want to bring here is that a lot of these conversations have boiled down to the cyclists need to be safer. The cyclists need to do this. The cyclists need to do that. The cyclists need to do this. And these conversations never boil down to, or at least it's very, very rare to see the conversation boil down to, hey, why don't we do things to make cycling safer by, I don't know, slowing down vehicles or separating cyclists from vehicles with their own protected infrastructure. But what do you guys think about this?
I mean, that's what I'm all about, is about making our streets safer, right? And we've talked about this in different contexts. One that I talked about with Lucy Maloney was the driver who went careening off the road, ran a red light, almost hit people who were in the crosswalk, then went off into the sidewalk, hit a father and the daughter died. And it's like, nothing's changed. Nothing's changed. Like, things can happen and nothing changes. So it's like, to try to get them to change things before something happens is already like, you're out to lunch. It's not going to happen. So it's like, why can't we do that? It's the coroner's inquest. At least that much. Once something happens, figure out how to make sure it never happens again. We don't do it.
I just find it so disappointing that a figure with any sort of, popularity didn't mention the importance of building cycling infrastructure, because that's the easiest way to make cycling safer. I mean, if you look at countries like the Netherlands, where Nick is currently, you'll see that the ratio of people who wear, high-vis vests when riding or wearing helmets is actually quite low.
Yeah, and I will say too, I don't know the specific, circumstances of Gordon Ramsay's incident, of his crash. I don't know if there was a car involved or if he was even on general transportation infrastructure, or if he was on a mixed-use path or something else. I don't know about that. So I can appreciate why he's talking about his helmet, especially because that's what saved his head, right? I don't know the details of what was involved, but what I did see was on Threads, the U.S. Consumer Product and Safety, or Product Safety Commission, had posted this and said, bike helmets save lives. Always wear a helmet when riding your bike, scooter, or hoverboard. And then somebody responds and says, better infrastructure like separated bike paths and concrete protected bike lanes will prevent more injuries than helmets. And then the US CPSC responds, this comes up a lot and it's not about one system of prevention versus another. A helmet's job is to prevent a skull from fracturing if it hits pavement, trees, etc. Helmets are not a substitute for bike-friendly infrastructure. Helmets are the last line of defense for riders have from very serious head injury. And this is true. Like I wear a helmet when I ride my bike, but that's mostly because I'm scared of a car hitting me and then my head hitting on either the car or the pavement. I'm not wearing a helmet because I'm cycling around on a flat surface just on my way to the grocery store. I'm wearing a helmet because cars are dangerous. That's why I'm wearing a helmet. So I appreciate that they say it's not a one or the other, and they also highlight that this is the last line of defense, and that's true. This is a last line of defense, but it's like if somebody gets in a car crash and it's because there's like a huge pothole in the ground and it popped their tire and they careened off into a post, and they say make sure you have airbags in your car. Right? That's what this is kind of relating to. Airbags are that last line of defense. But what we really should be looking at is like, okay, but what led to that last line of defense needing to be enacted and needing to be such an important part of the way that we do whatever activity, right? The helmet is the last line of defense. Our problem is we don't have the first, second, third, fourth, fifth, sixth. We are missing all of those other systems and infrastructure that otherwise make it so that, you know, if you don't have your last line of defense, you'll probably be okay anyways, right? Yeah. That's the issue.
And I think there's been cost-benefit analysis about wearing helmets. And a helmet-wearing culture has less people riding to begin with, which has a bunch of other effects that you don't get. You don't get the positive effects of safety in numbers and things like that, and having a healthy cycling culture. So I think that the cost-benefit analysis is leaning towards the helmetless society. Because while, yes, a helmet will help you, it can and will help you, all the other things around it make it more dangerous if you have a helmeted society. But I have one thing. So my last video about Japan, I was doing research about this, and there was one thing that I remembered in one article. And here, let me read it to you here. It says, most of those killed, or 95%, were not wearing helmets. Of those who died from head injuries, 96% were helmetless, while only 4% were wearing protective gear. Found that interesting. The reason why I found that interesting is because the percentage, around the percentage who wear helmets in Japan is 4%. Which this is just one number against the other, but it's just saying to me that helmets have done nothing in Japan, because it's the same amount of people dying from head injuries who are wearing helmets as there are in the general population riding around with helmets on. But that's just another stat. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean, realistically, a helmet is only going to do so much against a Ram 1500 that's lifted. I mean, with our vehicle standards getting crazier and crazier and just more and more, insane by the day when it comes to the vehicle arms race, which we've talked about before as well here too. Unfortunately, the helmet, I feel like the helmet's, usefulness has kind of been dropping, but it is, I wouldn't say don't wear one. I'd still suggest wearing one, but realistically, we need to do more than just tell people to wear helmets.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. It's such a Band-Aid. It's not even funny. Yeah. Yeah. And it's one of those things where it's like, oh, he was wearing a helmet, so his head didn't, crack in half. But hey, his organs are turned to jelly because the Ram's hood was like right fucking straight across his chest, right? Like,
yeah.
So.
Yeah. Any final thoughts on this, Ethan, before we move on to some listener mail?
Yeah, if you live in a car-dependent area and you have to ride a bike, wear a helmet, and be aware of your surroundings, and do not trust any vehicles on the road because, they don't care. So that's all I have to say. If you ride in a car-dependent place, you just got to be really, really alert and just be aware of the fact that people are going to blame you for everything.
Yeah. And even in the Netherlands, be careful. There are some wacko drivers I've discovered even today.
Yeah, they're everywhere, and I think that's something everybody can agree on. But let's get on to some listener mail. If you want to write into us, you can comment on our YouTube video. You can also send us an email at radiofreeurbanism@gmail.com. Let us know any of your urbanist thoughts, maybe some urbanist stories from your area. We're always trying to reach outside of our shell a little bit, because of course I hear most of what's going on in Calgary. Nick hears most about what's going on in Vancouver. Ethan somehow manages to hear about all sorts of transit things. But I guess he's paying more attention more broadly than us. But yeah, send us an email at radiofreeurbanism@gmail.com. You can also join us on Patreon. Become a patron for $1 a month and get access to the live show, like Austin is in the live chat here. And he says, thank you, San Diego, for the water pipe. San Diego is sending Calgary a water pipe so that we can get back to more than 2-minute showers. But Nick, take us away with this first comment.
This one is from Sean Troy. Says, I got a wug mug spelled incorrectly, but that doesn't matter. It sounds the same to me. What grinds my gears? Drive-through banks. What the fuck is up with that? I get that back in the days before the internet and direct deposit, it kind of made sense. But I see new developments with them and can't fathom why. Talk about bike lanes sitting empty all day. Well, show me how many cars go through a bank drive-through, and it'll make bike lanes numbers seem like the Shibuya crossing. Okay, I'm good now. Have a nice day, y'all. Thanks, Sean. That's funny.
Yeah, this is a big wug mug.
Absolutely.
I don't get it. It's an ATM in a wall that you drive to. It does just walk into the place. Like I get maybe some people have accessibility issues and they live in a car dependent place and they can't get out of the car because the fucking sidewalks doesn't have a curb cut in it. But like that's a whole nother issue. Like what the fuck are we doing? Oh my god.
So funny thing about a lot of places in Las Vegas or even just in the US in general is that you'll literally just find an ATM just sitting out in the middle of nowhere. And it's like a bank ATM, like it's like a Chase or like a Wells Fargo. And it's just a drive-through pull-up ATM. There's not even a bank attached to it. It's just the ATM out there. But we have seen ever since the end of the pandemic, even fast food places all shift to this drive-through oriented setup where dining in is really not the big option, and pulling up to walking up to a window isn't the big one either. The thing is that they're basically just all turning into full-on drive-throughs, and it's just for use cases, like you guys have seen the Taco Bell, like that's all drive-through, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that's quite a monstrosity. We'll pull one up after this image of TD Bank, but
yeah. So I've got this footage. If you're watching the YouTube channel, this lady in red crossing here, she was going to the bank and she just realized that the inside ATM is closed. It closes at like 5 p.m. or something at this branch, and so then she is going to the back of the lineup to get in line to wait for these cars to pass. And this gentleman here, I'll speed up the video a little bit. You'll see once this blue car leaves, he stands at the ATM and does his banking transaction, and then he walks away. And it's wild that we have this drive-through always available whenever you need it. But if you're a person, you have to go stand awkwardly between these cars in a drive-through, which is actually a liability for the business. If you walk through a drive-through, they will tend not to serve you because it's a liability issue. But I have gotten food in a drive-through while on my bicycle. They laughed about it and they were kind of like, "Are we allowed to?" And I'm like, "Well, it's a vehicle, so." I have to ride on the road, so this is how I'm getting my A&W tonight. But yeah, look at this Taco Bell. Tell us about this, Ethan.
So this is Taco Bell's. I believe this one is in. This one I believe is in Minneapolis, if I'm not mistaken, or in like Minnesota in general. It does say it's from Denver, but I know that they're trying to make this like a huge concept for the business, is kind of like the future of the business, where takeout has kind of become fast food's really own thing. Dine-in is really just not an option anymore that a lot of businesses are really wanting to do. So they're all really kind of converting to these takeout options. And of course, in our car-dependent American design, we have lovingly made our Taco Bells all drive-through. The Captain Crunch Oops All Berries. This is Taco Bell's Oops All Drive-Through. So if you want to get your Baja Blast with a chalupa and the cinnamon twists, this is how you're going to have to deal with it, viewers. It is literally just a straight kitchen over drive-throughs underneath. So it's like 3 drive-through lanes, but then the only place that really like is the Taco Bell is the kitchen that is up above. So it's on like a raised platform with the drive-throughs underneath.
It's wild. It's
That is-
absolutely wild.
That is kind of interesting. You know what? I have to say Taco Bell is one of my guilty pleasures, but I'm very thankful that there's like one in the Lower Mainland and it's nowhere near me, and I've never been to it. I haven't been to Taco Bell in so long because I just don't have the opportunities.
I have it way too much, unfortunately, but
Yeah.
I can say there are a lot of other ones that aren't as car dependent.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's crazy.
Austin, in the live chat, before we get on to our next comment, Austin says, how do we feel about Sonic Drive-In? And personally, I think the food is supremely overrated. So that's how I feel about Sonic. But what about you guys?
I'm a big fan of their Red Bull slushy, but other than that, I could take it or leave it.
I've never had Sonic.
Yeah,
Peppers.
yeah, and the drive-in thing is meh. Yeah, it's just more car dependency, and we don't need that. But getting away from car dependency, Ethan, do you want to read us this next comment?
Yes, so this is a lovely comment from one of the friends of the show, Jen Hall, and they said, do you think a dedicated micro-mobility repair shop would thrive in cities now that they've gained in popularity? If it was yours, what would you call it?
Oh, double question.
I'd call mine Village Bicycles, and I'd let Austin Surson run it. Austin does some micro mobility repair, some bike repair. I don't know if Austin does e-scooters. Maybe he can tell us in the live chat. But I don't know what I'd call mine. I do like the idea more than like micro mobility repair shops. I like those like the self fix-it things that you can sometimes find on the side of bike racks and stuff, with just like some Allen keys and other things like that, just to fix up your bike while you're on the go. I love little repair stations like that.
Yeah. The thing is, when it comes to electrical components, especially scooters and other mobility devices that are electric only and they're not any human power parts to it for the most part. The scooter, I guess, is, but come on. Who's pushing? You might kick off. Come on.
It's not a Razor scooter.
Yeah. I think they can. I mean, I talked about it last week about getting my scooter repaired at a local shop that opened up recently that I just noticed by walking by it. And will it thrive? I don't know. There's a lot of bike shops. Are there a lot of micro-mobility shops? There's a few I've known of before, but not that many. If I was going to name it, it'd be something like Rolling Forward or like Keep on Rolling or something like that. Yeah, that's my shop.
I like it.
I mean, surprisingly, micromobility has started to thrive in Las Vegas despite the lack of infrastructure. I mean, there has been some work to build it out more, but I have seen quite a few people with e-bikes and e-scooters just within my own neighborhood. It could definitely succeed out here, especially in a city of 3 million. If I had to come up with a name for mine, though, I'd probably go with like Sin City Scooters or something like that. I'm sure that's probably taken, but something a little more fun.
Something a little Vegas-y.
Something a little Vegas-y, a little flashy, you know?
Yeah, I like it. Ethan or Austin suggest Cinnarolls as
sounds like a bakery.
as the name for it. It does. And he also says he doesn't do scooters. He says it's a different supply chain and largely electronic work rather than the mechanical stuff that you get on bicycles. But as our last piece of listener mail today, this comes from Reese on YouTube, who we read a comment from last week, and we do get to that a little bit at the end of this here. But Reese says, you talk about the addition of transit causing induced demand for transit. I think network effects come into play here as well. The thing about adding a lane or a road is that lane or road is part of a huge network of roads that makes the road very useful. On its own, on its own, for example, detached from the network or as a part of a smaller network, the additional lane would not be useful, but the effect of a huge and comprehensive network is that the extra lane can induce more demand. My point here is that adding an extension to the existing streetcar network will induce demand, but the effect will be weak because the network is not strong. After all, it is just one line. I don't know where I'm going with this, but clearly the streetcar is not as dominant a force in Arizona as the metro in New York City. You add an extension in New York City, and because of the metro's strong network effects, so much more demand is induced, so to speak. And I think that's a really excellent point. This highlights the importance of having a connected network. It's the same if you build a bike lane in the middle of nowhere and you're like, nobody rides bikes. It's like, well, nobody can get to this nice bike lane that you made because it's not connected to other nice bike lanes. So I thought that was a great point. Reese also said that they're trying to set up a Strong Towns chapter, which is great. And that kind of goes back to what we were talking about last week with Reese's comment about considering taking the mayor out for a bike ride and having a conversation about that. Yeah. What do you guys think of Reese's comments? Any thoughts on there?
I'm just gonna say, I mean, when it comes to building a network, it's definitely, I feel like it's more to scale when it comes to, bike or pedestrian infrastructure on that level, where one line or one, street may not be, the completion of a network or even the start where you really don't see that much impact. But I think transit has a little bit more staying power when it comes to that. It obviously does get benefits from a network effect, but I mean, transit really can benefit on its own from just purely having one good line. And this might seem surprising, but cities like Seattle have done really, really effective work with just one light rail line. Phoenix, surprisingly, has really good ridership for its light rail line, for its one light rail line as well. And I mean, adding on to that, yeah, you're going to get some network effect, and it may not always be big from the start, like, Reese says here, but I mean, it's really all about building it out too, and you're going to have some growing pains with the network. An extension may not have the ridership that you want from when you first build it, or it may not be what you expect from when you first build it. But it's all about consistently building out onto that network, keep adding on more transit to the network, make your connections better, stronger, more frequent, faster, everything like that will continue to enhance your transit as well, obviously with zoning too. But realistically, you can start pretty well with one line. I believe that the Seattle Link, with its first line, quite literally, I believe it had like 65 to 7,000 riders per mile. And I believe that Phoenix is averaging about 4,500. And those aren't bad numbers by American standards. They're a little bit lower than what you'd see in Canada, but they generally have higher ridership on their lines there. But it really, it all does come down to building out the network. And I mean, yeah, starting strong with your first line is a really, really good way to encourage more network ridership.
Yeah, and I also think the network can be extended in a variety of ways, right? Like the light rail isn't just the light rail, it's a transit network. So bus connections are important as well as last mile connections, right? If you have decent bike parking places, that can assist with that. Bike share services, scooter services, things like that. All of those can help extend that network a little bit, especially as Ethan talked about through those growing pains of growing out the network. Nick, we'll get your thoughts on this one, and then we'll boogie on.
I mean, I think I see where Reese is coming from, and I mostly agree. And I think I see the point in saying, like, when you already have, a big populace there, some kind of network, it's easier to expand, your metro system to make it induce demand, right? Because you can just add things and people are already there and it's going to make it easier. I get that. I don't know what to say here. I don't know what to say. I'm fake.
Yeah, no. It's a good comment, and we appreciate your insights as always, Reese. And keep us updated on how setting up a Strong Towns chapter goes, how kind of getting organized with anything else in your area is going. We look forward to hearing some updates on that. And Nick, you've got something to wrap us up with?
Yeah,
Some
it's like
final
a mini,
thoughts?
super mini wugmug. Super mini what grinds my gears. And this is coming from a post that I saw on the Vancouver subreddit. Fun fact to the guy who yelled at me and yelled, use the crosswalk from the truck after failing to yield. And they posted a picture of an intersection in Vancouver, like many intersections in Vancouver, where there's a curb cut on the sidewalks and there's no actual crosswalk painted across the road. So the rules in Vancouver are that drivers are to yield at unsignaled crosswalks. So this would be one of those. Anytime where there's basically two sidewalks across from each other, I don't even think there has to be a curb cut. That's considered an uncontrolled crossing, and that drivers are supposed to yield to pedestrians. And my wugmug about this is not the fact that drivers don't know about this. They should know about this. It's the fact that why don't we just paint some shit on the street? It'd make it a lot more clear. I know there's a couple of these in my neighborhood that I regularly have to cross, and are quite harrowing. And I really don't like crossing them all off and go out of my way to go around them because it's just like high speed traffic, 4 lanes. Nobody's going to stop. Like, they're not going to stop for you. And I'm thinking about, some tactical urbanism we can get in there at night to roll some paint down on the street or something. Because it's not safe. It's not safe.
Yeah.
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 It has a really, well, the fix is much bigger, but in the interim, a relatively simple and cheap fix.
Yeah. And I mean, obviously, ideally, the solution is to, prioritize pedestrians more, right? Do things like road diets, chicanes, raised crosswalks or continuous sidewalks, things like that. That's obviously the ideal scenario, but paint really is the bare minimum. It really is just like, hey, this is a crosswalk, especially if you have rules about yielding to pedestrians in crosswalks. Like, if you're going to make that a rule, you should make it obvious where to follow that rule and where you don't have to. Now, obviously, I always say feet first. Pedestrians should be prioritized at every single turn, whether they're crossing where they're quote unquote supposed to or not. It's honestly, guys, it's not that hard to throw down some paint.
It's the bare minimum.
Yeah. Is that going to do it for us? Are we wrapping up this little doodad we've done here today?
I think we are wrapping up this little doodad, but I can't believe that is 4 lanes unmarked and legal to cross there. That is absolutely just... Yeah, I mean, if you're the average North American driver, you would not assume that is a crossing.
No. And the way that drivers act, too, in those situations, they feel like they have the right of way. I even caught this on camera, like someone almost running somebody over because they're like, it's my... Like, even if a pedestrian crosses a red light and you have a green light in your car, like... What are you doing? Like, I have it on camera, someone almost running somebody over because they had the green light. Like, it's
green mean go.
Impediment. Yeah.
Nothing else matter. Yeah. I am the only one on the road.
Exactly. Like, don't bother paying attention to other road users. Your light changed color. Okay. Well, this has been good, grand, and groovy. Thanks for being here today, guys. Thanks for Austin for being in the chat, even though we changed the time of the live show. And remember, if you want to join the live show, go to patreon.com/radiofreeurbanism and become a patron today. And then you can hang out with us in the live chat, as well as on our Discord server, where we just kind of hang out. It's kind of chill. We share some urbanist stuff in there every now and again. But with that, Ethan, where can we find you?
Folks, you can find me at Climate and Transit, or on Twitter, you can find me at Climate Transit. I have a very exciting video coming out this Friday, so, if you want to check that out, that one will be up on YouTube, and there are occasional shorts. I try and do them every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, so.
Fantastic. Nick?
You can find me at Nick Laporte on YouTube or Nick the Door in other social media platforms. By the way, the next 2 shows might be early as well for the live stream. We'll see.
Yeah, we'll keep everyone posted. And you can find me at Humane Cities on YouTube and Instagram. I do have some stuff coming out and being planned. But with that, Ethan.
People, thank you for watching. Train good, car bad.
2 wheels good.
And feet first. We'll see you next week, folks. Thanks for joining us.